National League edition coming your way. Starting off with the East, there's three really good teams in this division, and I'm not exactly sure where to put them. You got the Phillies, you got the Braves, you got the Mets as like the top three really elite teams, and it's hard to pick against any of them because, the Braves have been good for a while now, about half a decade. They have a really complete team. Chris Sale coming off an awesome year. Philly is always a good postseason performer. Bryce Harper, can't count them out. And then the Mets were really good, just went to the NLCS and added Juan Soto. So just those three teams are stacked. Where do you got them?
Yeah, so um, I won't reveal it now, but my World Series champ is going to come from this division. And I agree with you. There's three really, really good teams. Um, I'm less sold on the Mets as other people are, but also last year during our All-Star break check-in thing we did, I said that I liked the Nationals in the second half more than them. So my opinion on the Mets is probably not to be trusted, but their pitching staff worries me a little bit. Is the big thing because I mean their lineup is nuts. I love Lindor, and then Edwin Diaz is an excellent closer. Their bullpen's nasty. Um, the Phillies are they have the second best pitching staff I think behind the Mariners. You can make the argument. I mean, and the Dodgers if they stay healthy, but they have really good starting pitching. They have studs all over the field. Their bullpen is strong. I'm not totally sold on Jordan Romano, but they're pretty complete. And then the Braves, like they're similar to like the Astros to me, where like they just have shown that they can succeed no matter what. Um, and then the Nationals are a really, really fun young team. They kind of remind me of the Reds last year, the year before that, where like you have all these young, exciting pieces, but the pitching is not there at all. And the bullpen is really, really weak. So I just don't think they're gonna be able to like string success together. And then the Marlins, I think, are the worst team in this. Um,
Yeah,
actually, them in Colorado, I think, are
let's
fighting
get
for that bottom spot.
let's get it out of the way. Marlins have Alcantara. He's pretty good. They just traded away Jazz to the Yankees last year midseason. Marlins five, Nationals, like you said, exciting young core. Their shortstop, he's awesome. But yeah, they're four. Let's get that out of the way. So we got our five and our four out of the way. One through three is a tough one. I'm really on the fence. This is really tough. I think this is the hardest thing to predict in the whole MLB standings. I kind of think like I look at it and I think the Braves are probably the best, but it's really tight, and they also have Acuna out for a little bit. So I'm gonna say because of that, I'll go Phillies, Braves, Mets. That's the way I'm gonna go. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would go Braves, Phillies, Mets, but I will say like this decision is really hard, but it does feel like if you pick the wrong one, like they're still going to make the playoffs. Like it's not like like for the NL Central, like if you're like, oh, I think the Cubs are going to be the best, like they could finish fourth and win like 70 games. But like if you're like, oh, I think the Mets are going to win the NL East and they don't, they're still going to win like 90 games. Like
Yes.
all three of these teams are very, very good. So I don't think you can kind of go wrong here. But the one thing with the to watch is where Sandy Alcantara gets traded to, because like that could really swing a playoff team. Like if the Yankees go trade for him, like that's a huge move because he's really, really good. They said like during spring training that they were going to monitor his workload to entice teams to trade for him. So like I don't think I've ever seen a team come out and say that before. So even though they are the worst team in this division, they could still kind of impact the playoff race, which is fun.
That's an interesting take. Moving on to the Central, like there's they're not as top heavy. I think all three of the teams we just listed are better than anybody in the Central right now. I'm gonna go with the Cubs at one and the Brewers at two, just because you have to get rid of your closer during the offseason. I think that's a tough one for Milwaukee to recover from. I mean, Williams, he's just a phenomenal player. So I got to go with the Cubs in this one. They obviously made some moves over the offseason. So I go Cubs, Brewers, and then the next three are kind of tough for me. I'll let you go with the top two. What do you think?
Yeah, so I would go Brewers one, and then for number two, I would go Pittsburgh. Um, I'm so you kind of talked about how Milwaukee traded Devin Williams away, but they
Yep.
also traded Josh Hader away
Oh,
a
that's
few
right.
years
I
ago.
forgot about that.
Yeah, and then they have right now they have Trevor McGill, and then they have a prospect Craig Yoho who throws the same pitch that Devin Williams did, the Airbender, which like if they have another guy that can do that, that's crazy.
I
But
didn't know that.
they're kind of they're kind of like the Guardians of the National League, where like it seems like they never have the talent to match these other teams, but they just find ways to win games. And then the Cubs, like their bullpen is a disaster. You saw it with these two games today and yesterday. I think they walked 15 guys in two games. Their pitching staff, like
Yeah.
I like even with a better lineup, like you're not going to be able to beat anybody if you're doing that. So I'm not sold on them. If they trade for a pitcher, like if they get Alcantara, then like there's a serious contender. But I don't love the pitching enough, and that's why I like Pittsburgh. I love the pitching for them. They have, in my opinion, the second best pitcher in the National League behind Strider with Paul Skeens, but like you could very easily say Skeens is the best. But they have him, Jared Jones, who I think is actually like got elbow pain today, which is a little ominous. But they have Mitch Keller, who's solid, and then they have pitching prospects like everywhere. Like Bubba Chandler, who's the best pitching prospect in baseball, if you don't count Roki Sasaki. So he's going to be really good. They have Thomas Harrington, Braxton Ashcraft. Like they just need to find guys that can hit for them. And they traded for Spencer Horwitz. They made that trade with the Red Sox to get Nick York. Like they just need a couple of these guys to be average with the bat, and I think they'll be good.
Good point. Didn't he used to play for the Fisher Cats?
I think so. That sounds familiar.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's Horowitz did. So who you got four and five?
So I think I'd probably put the Cubs three and then the Reds four, but I could go either way on that. And then the Cardinals, I'm just so out on. I don't like what they're doing at all. I think Ollie Marmol is kind of a doofus. So I like some of their players. I really love Lars Nootbaar. I think Jordan Walker should be a star, but he's stuck in that dumpster fire organization. So I'm not sure if they're going to play him enough, but their pitching is awful. And they have like some decent prospects, but I think they're kind of a year or two away. Like they're not ready to go right now. So the like Cardinal way was a thing like when we were growing up, when we were younger, when they were like successful over and over again with Molina and Pujols and stuff. But like right now, it seems really bleak for them.
Yeah, 2011 World Series champions. Uh, yeah, I think that's true. I would say I already said it, but I'll just go over it again. One Chicago, two Milwaukee. I'll add on to it. I think Pittsburgh's going to be good. I agree. I'll go Pittsburgh three, Cincy four, and then Cardinals five. They're just not good.
Yeah.
Moving on to the West. Who do you think's going to win the West? I mean, it's not like anybody's a really good stacked elite team in the West, is it now?
Yeah. The Dodgers are going to win. It's going to be by a lot, but I do think this division is still good. The Diamondbacks are kind of like I think they're everybody's kind of like popular bounce back team. Even though I don't even know if people know this, they led the league in runs scored last year. Like they had the best offense, which is kind of crazy. And they got Corbin Burns, so that's pretty good. I still really like the Padres, and then the Giants are that like on paper they have a great team. So if the NL East didn't exist, I would say that this team could have like three playoff teams, but it's probably not going to happen because the NL East is so good. But obviously, the Dodgers they're the best team in baseball. Like they just won the World Series and got better. So it's not fun to talk about them, but they are stacked.
Sasaki, oh my God. Like when they got him, like I told you, I said Dodgers are gonna get him, but it's just crazy. This opens up the conversation for something else, which is should there be a salary cap? I texted you over the offseason. I was like, we absolutely need that at this point.
So As like a fan of a small market team, I feel like I should say yes, but I don't think there should be. Like if your owner has the money to spend, like spend it. Like you're a billionaire. I don't care. Like if you're gonna own a sports team, like you should try and be successful. So like yeah, like I think Red Sox fans are frustrated because they have the money and they're choosing not to spend it. So they're like, we need a salary cap. But like if you do the Red Sox from like 10 years ago, you're like, your salary cap's ridiculous. Like, no way. So I get it. It sucks that the Dodgers are spending money, but like, I don't think the Dodgers are the problem. I think like the Pirates and the Guardians and the Tigers are the problem. Like, the teams at the bottom need to spend the money they have. Like, the discrepancy between the Dodgers and Yankees versus, the A's and the other teams, like, the gap isn't so wide where the Dodgers get every single player. Like, the other teams need to be willing to spend the money.
What you're saying makes sense, but I just don't agree with it because, like, every other sport has a salary cap. Hockey, basketball, football, they all have a salary cap. And so it's just like, I feel like that's just like an unfair advantage for the Dodgers. And it's like, I don't know. It's tough to have a conversation about billionaires because like there's like they have so much money at the same time. There's like different tiers to billionaires and the amount of money that they have. I agree, invest in your team, but I think what's
Well,
going on with the Dodgers right now is ridiculous.
I will like the parity for the MLB is better than it's been for the NFL for sure with the Chiefs. And then like the NBA recently has had more parity with like different people winning, but like I can't even
Historically.
remember the last time they were repeat World Series champions. So like it's frustrating and it just gives an easy villain to be like, all right, like the Dodgers suck, but also like it doesn't just mean we're not going to play the whole season. Like they could still lose. Like I don't think they're going to make the World Series. It's really hard to win back to back. Like so, it sucks that they have all the good players. What particularly frustrates me is the bullpen. Like, did everybody need to let them get Tanner Scott? Like, that's the like Sasaki. I get it, but like, why are you letting them get all the good relievers? Like, you can buy Kirby Yates. Like he's not going to cost a ton of money. So like that's the stuff that doesn't make sense to me. Where like where were the Giants for some of those signings? Like these teams that have shown they want to spend money, but only for like superstars and not relievers. Whereas the Dodgers are like, oh yeah, like we think he's worth that. We'll pay it. Whatever. We don't care. Like sure.
Interesting take. Let's predict the division. For me, one Dodgers, two Diamondbacks, three Padres, four Giants, still a good team, and then Colorado. I feel bad putting them at five because they're probably like my third or fourth favorite team in the league. And I love Bryant, but they're just so awful. God, so yeah, they're probably the worst team. I think they're the worst team in the National League, and Miami's probably the second worst. So that's my take. What do you think?
Yeah. So this is the first division where we're totally in agreement on 1 through 5. I think Diamondbacks, Padres, Giants could be separated by like a few games, but that's the order I would put it in right now. And the Rockies are, they're horrible. Like, um, I think the Angels are the worst organization, and then I think the Rockies are second. Um, I think for like they have such a weird park with cores and the elevation, like to not take advantage of that in some way is really bizarre. Like they've never had a good pitcher, so like, but they keep drafting pitchers in the MLB draft. Like, I I would lean into it. Like, try and get a great lineup. Like, they did it with Chris Bryant. They gave him all that money, and it's been a disaster. But like, that's the kind of stuff that I think you need to do when you have a weird park like that. So like, I think with their current ownership and management, I don't know how they're ever going to be relevant in that division.
Yes. Their ballpark is beautiful. I've been there in person, just didn't get to go to a game because it was November or December. But it's a really nice park, but it's too bad that the team's not better because it would be cool to see a really good Rockies team. They're a fun team, I think, to root for when they're good, but they haven't been good in a while. So yeah, let's go for our wild cards to recap my division winners. I said Phillies, Cubs, and Dodgers, and then my wild cards. I'm gonna go with Braves, Mets, and then I got one left. I'm gonna go with Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I think that's a good group. I would go Dodgers, Brewers, Braves, Phillies, Mets, and then Diamondbacks. I think probably get that last spot, but I'd be tempted to put Pittsburgh there. Just I think good pitching can really carry you in the modern league, but obviously with injuries and stuff, like who knows?
I
But
agree. I just think
um,
they're young, and I feel like they need a few more pieces. Who knows? They could trade for it.
definitely, yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so it should be interesting. Who you got? NLCS prediction.
Yeah, so I said it earlier. I think the Braves are going to win the World Series, so I have them over the Dodgers, and then I would do the Braves over the Rangers. I think the Braves are kind of they're like almost flying under the radar. Last year they made the playoffs without Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna, which is like insane. Like they're two best players. And Matt Olson, Austin Riley, and Ozzie Albies all took a step back. So and Michael Harris was hurt, but Chris Sale won Cy Young, so like that was kind of what buoyed them. And then Spencer Schwellenbach is like one of the most like fun underrated pitchers, but like Acuna and Strider are going to miss like a month, maybe. Like I think this team is like stacked. They were crushing teams 2 years ago, so if they just stay healthy, I think on paper they're as good as the Dodgers. And then just because the Dodgers won last year and with health concerns, I don't think they can beat the Braves in a 7 game series. But obviously, that's not a popular pick.
I'm actually gonna copy you a little bit here. I could even see like the Dodgers getting upset by the Diamondbacks in like the division series because it's not like if you win this, 162 game marathon and you win 112 games or whatever the heck, it's not gonna matter. It's just like can Arizona beat you in a few. Like I think that's totally possible that that happens in like the division series or whatever. We saw it with Baltimore the last few years. They were like really good, and then the playoffs come around and they just did not happen against Kansas City.
Especially with them getting Corbin Burns. Like, if you can throw him out there in 2 games against the Dodgers, like that goes a long way.
So I'm gonna pick an upset, and I'm gonna go with the Diamondbacks beating the Dodgers in the division series, and then I got Braves over Diamondbacks in the championship series, and then Braves over Red Sox in the World Series.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised you're picking Boston to lose. It's very modest. Um, I think I mentioned it last year. Like aside from how horrible my Mets take was, like I did say that like I thought the Padres could give the Dodgers problems in the playoffs, and then the Dodgers like after they won, they said that that was the hardest series. Like I think when you play against a division opponent in the playoffs that's seen you so many times, like those are really hard games to play. So I think picking the Diamondbacks over them is like it's like a really astute take. Like they played them like 20 something times or whatever. Like they're not going to be afraid of the Dodgers, especially because like they made the World Series 2 years ago. Like they have the pedigree, they have the confidence, and then they added one of the 5 best pitchers in the league. So I think I mean, that would be fun, especially because like the Dodgers losing would be fun, but I don't think that's like a totally like crazy take, like at all.
Nice. I also think the Braves versus the Phillies and probably the other division series like that's another interesting one because again like those are division rivals and there's been times like over the last few years where Atlanta's been really good and Phillies beat them I think like twice in the last like 4 or 5 years. And it was interesting because at that point the Braves were more of a heavy favorite and the Phillies were coming up.
Yeah, and you had that whole like Attaboy Harper thing like 2 years ago when in the playoffs. I forget what he did, but he like grounded out or something, and then the next game he hit like a home run and was hitting it like when he's running the bases. So like those teams clearly hate each other. So that would be really fun, I think.
I agree. I think that'd be a really really good series. I just think Atlanta would get it done this time, but we'll see. It should be a fun season. Maybe we'll hop on again over the summer. We'll see about the trade deadline, the All Star break, and everything. But this has been
Yeah.
fun. You have
Yeah,
any
definitely.
hot takes you want to share in terms of players?
Yeah, I like it's hot because he always gets hurt, but I do think that Grom could win the Cy Young again, which I think would be fun in the American League. In the National League, it's kind of hard to pick like a fun MVP or anything because like if Otani's healthy, he's going to win MVP. He's incredible, but um, like I could see people really getting behind Soto for MVP. I thought he was going to win the MVP last year, and then Judge was incredible. So, but like we didn't even talk about the Mets for the playoffs, but like and they could easily trade for an ace and then be the best team. So like
Yes.
I think my like crazy hottest take this year is that the Athletics aren't going to be terrible. Like I think they could be fun. And then I think the White Sox pitching staff is like sneaky kind of good, which I think is fun because that team stinks. But
That's an
um
interesting one.
I don't have like any like crazy hot take right now, but um the Guardians are going to win the World Series. Everybody knows that. They're going to trade for Mike Trout. So I mean, we're all just waiting for it to happen.
Nice. I'd like to see like the Reds or the Nationals be sneaky good. I think would be fun. Um,
Oh,
I think
playoff LA would be awesome.
I'd love to see that. I also think the American League East is interesting. I would, as a Red Sox fan, to see, hey, the Blue Jays finished last again from last year, to see them not do as well, to see Tampa not have a ballpark and struggle, to see, you know, Orioles lose Burns and the Yankees have all these injuries and just see it crash and burn and see the Red Sox surge above it would be
Well,
that'd
and
be fun.
I mean, if I was a Boston fan, like my ideal scenario is the Blue Jays stink, and then guess who's getting Vladdy? Like
Yes.
that's the ideal situation.
I
And
was thinking about that.
you trade Cassis for a pitcher or whatever, and then you just have Vladimir Guerrero. Like that's what if I was a Red Sox fan, that would be like we're gonna be really good this year, and then next year we're gonna return everybody. Anthony Campbell, Meyer will be ready, and we have Vladimir Guerrero.
See, I was thinking more about next off season because like he's going to be a free agent, but
Yeah, exactly.
they might want to move him because they might not get anything back. If they just stink, they might want to move him, but who knows? Sometimes people hang on to players for too long like we did with Bogarts, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Blue Jays hung on to him and then the Red Sox stole him over the off season and free agency.
Well, and you have the excuse me, you have the Crochet thing where last year the White Sox were like, we want to trade him. Like he's obviously an asset. Let's trade him at the deadline. And Crochet came out and was like, if I'm getting traded, I want an extension. And all the teams were like scared off of it. And then this offseason, the Red Sox trade for Crochet, give him the extension, or are going to, I don't remember. Whereas like last year, if the Red Sox trade for him at the trade deadline, they could have been a wild card team. So I wonder if they come into this year being like, we could trade for Vladdy. He wants an extension, but like that could put us over the hump. Like maybe that experience gives them that. Because with their farm system, like they can get rid of like three guys and still have an
Mhm.
elite system. But also, like, I think the smart thing to do would be to wait and to just sign him next year. But I wouldn't sleep on them being like, screw it. Like, let's go win the World Series right away.
I agree with that. I think that's a good point. I just think that it just might be because of what I've seen over the last few years that they'd be less aggressive. Like what you're saying totally makes sense, but like to see them like say let's get him in free agency, especially because like I got to see him at the Fisher Cats when I was younger in 2018. He played there, and that was fun to watch. To see him play for the Red Sox would be really cool. I just kind of think that they're just like I'm discouraged by the lack of investment in the team now. Things are changing, but I'm still hesitant to think that they would do that. And also, like, they could kind of get him for free over the off season. And, you could do that versus giving up prospects. So I'm kind of thinking they wouldn't be as aggressive, but who knows? And I'd really like to see them go win the World Series. Obviously, that'd be fantastic. But, like, it's not like Cassis sucks. Like, I think Cassis is still
No,
good.
yeah. I actually really like him. Yeah.
I think if Cassis sucked,
Um,
I would agree with you more. Like if he was just awful, like the
no,
Yankees.
I actually really
Um,
like Cassis. Like, if I was a Red Sox fan, I'd rather trade Devers, to be honest with you. It, like, the whole offseason stuff of him being like, I'm a third baseman. Like, what? You're horrible at third base. Like,
He's yeah,
why
he's
wouldn't you want to do what's best for the team? Like, so, but obviously he's a stud. But like, I think Cassis is going to be really, really good. So I would agree with that. Like, they need to get someone to take that Yoshida contract, and it opens up like so many possibilities for them.
I just like it would just be hard for me to get rid of Devers because they've signed him to that huge deal. And it's just like now the team they have is good, but it's like you had Mookie, you traded him, you had Bogarts, and you just let him walk for nothing, which I was like screaming, hey, trade him, get something back, which, hey, they got a compensatory pick that turned into Christian Campbell, so they got something all right for him in the end. But like at that point, I was just upset about it. And then now, like you have Devers, and it's just like those are your guys from 2018, and like to trade him away would be sad, especially when he's young and he's done some good things. But I agree, the whole third base thing over the offseason was kind of stupid. But I guess when he signed his extension, he was told, like, yeah, you can play third base for a very long time here or whatever. So,
Yeah, well, and then that was like they didn't know they could get Alex Bregman, who's like a great defensive third baseman. So I don't know. It put me off of him as like a player. I was just like, man, that's like it's baseball, especially to the media. Like, just say you'll DH, even if behind closed doors you're like, I'm not playing second base. Like, whatever, just like outwardly, just say the right thing. Like, that's all you have to do. So that to me, and then Cassis came out and was like, yeah, he's our third baseman, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, they're creating
yes,
drama where there wasn't any at all.
this is stupid. I
But
think he's just upset because Garrett Cole's hurt for the year.
yeah,
He
he doesn't
wanted
have
to,
anybody to hit. He
yeah,
doesn't have anybody to hit home runs off of.
his batting average
Um,
is going to go down. Sorry, what were you
yeah.
saying?
I think like ideal scenario, they keep all those guys, they trade prospects, or they sign Guerrero, and then like if you have like you're like, oh, we have too many good hitters, like okay, move one to left field. Who cares? Like it's such a solvable problem
It
that
is.
like I wouldn't worry about it at all. Um, and then like you mentioned it, the big question for them is catcher. Like there's only like three good catchers that can hit anyway, so like I don't know if it really matters, but like can you win a World Series with Connor Wong is a question, I think.
Yes, I would. Ideally, I would like to say, Yoshida, get rid of Yoshida's contract somehow. You might have to throw in like another prospect as a sweetener. I think the three untouchables are obviously Campbell, Meyer, and Anthony.
Yeah.
But if it's like anybody outside of those guys that they're willing to part with maybe a couple, uh, B plus prospects instead of A like these guys are, and say, okay, you we'll give you this, but you got to take Yoshida's contract and you got to give us a good catcher back, and maybe a reliever. Like I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that's the biggest thing. I would say they need to get a better catcher and they need to add to their bullpen. Those are the two biggest things that are holding them back.
Yeah, if they can get a bona fide closer like that's a because their starting pitching is so good, like
Yes.
that it would be a real problem.
I also think it's interesting because your rotation could be like Bayo, obviously Crochet, and then like they have Walker Bueller, and people just forget about the fact that they have Walker Bueller now.
Well, and didn't Tanner Houck just make the All Star team? Like
Yeah,
that,
they have
like their
Hauk,
pitching, and then Cutter Crawford's not bad.
Cutter Crawford, and then they could move somebody to the bullpen. Like who
Yeah,
knows?
I think it came out Richard Fitz is going to start like in their rotation. Like he could be, he's been nasty this spring. Like they
And
kind
then
of have like a plethora of the one position where no one has a plethora of them.
and then they have Giolito. So I think like Crawford could be
Yeah,
moved to the bullpen. That's what I would like to do.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you could. I wonder if you could turn one of those guys into the closer. Where like I don't know off the top of
That's
my
what I
head like
want to
how
do with
hard.
Crawford.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head how hard any of them throw, but like bump them to the closer role, up that velo a couple ticks. They all throw the sweeper. Like that's where I think like if you don't want to make a trade for an aging reliever, like that's how you take the next step.
Because I would say like I would go Crochet, Bueller, and then Bayo, Giolito, and Hauk. Like those are your five, and I would put Crawford in the bullpen as your closer, and then trade for another reliever to just strengthen it.
Yeah, and I mean, they just paid Bueller, so like I mean, they gave him starter money. They probably told him he was a starter, but like we just saw him out of the bullpen win a World Series. So
True.
like I mean, a lot can change during the season for that to have to happen, but it's all like they have a bunch of like in-house possibilities that I think are pretty fun.
All right, should be a fun summer. Look forward to it, and go Red Sox. We'll see what happens with Cleveland.
God damn it. Yeah.
Please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps out a bunch and is completely free. Thank you.